Joe Biden has handed Ukraine to Russia on a silver platter. He doesn't seem to care about anything other than his ice cream. He did all of this at one of the rarest things in the Biden administration, a press conference. Also, are we going to see the end of Harris in the vice president's seat, or are we stuck with the cackling laugh for another 3 years? We'll discuss all of this and more today on Right Side of the Road. So Europe has some potential wars and invasions coming up. Russia, led by Vladimir Putin, is trying to invade Ukraine. You'd think that we'd help to stop this invasion because it'll lead for bad things to Ukraine and will make Russia more powerful, but Biden doesn't seem to care. He finally held a press conference to commemorate his first year in office, which I think this is like his second one. Seems like a rare occasion for him, but that's just because his administration wants him hidden in the basement most of the time. At this press conference, Biden asked him about the situation in Ukraine, and Biden just gave Russia the green light to invade.
Russia will be held accountable if it invades, and it depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and then we end up having a fight about what to do and not do, etc. But if they actually do what they're capable of doing with the force amassed on the border, it is going to be a disaster for Russia. My guess is he will move in. He has to do something.
Oh, okay. I didn't know how wars work. That's the problem. There's a difference between invading and, say, Putin just invading Ukraine. There's a major difference. A minor incursion. So does that mean that if I were to break down my neighbor's door and just, stand on their doormat on the inside, I wouldn't be persecuted? No, that's just in California. So what will Putin do? I think he'll just follow Biden's prediction. Why wouldn't he? What has Biden said that will make Putin think, maybe I shouldn't invade Ukraine? At this point, Putin has absolutely every reason to invade. Biden clearly will not stop it. Biden actually was considering sending troops to defend Ukraine. No word on if he has decided at the time of me recording this. I'm not sure he will, but even if he does, our army will probably only make a minor incursion on Putin's army. It's okay. If Putin invades, Biden will just declare it a minor incursion, and then they'll just break Putin's front line and then give up. It equals out. I honestly don't know why Biden's administration even let him out of the basement to host this. Let's take a look at some of the highlights I found.
So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, we're going to get a lot done.
Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna get a lot done. That's not vague at all. It's not necessarily convincing that we're going to get a lot done when it takes you 30 seconds to even form those words in your head, whereas I said them in 5 seconds. Honestly, after this conference, I think we might be next. Putin will invade Ukraine, and then he'll get all settled there after his minor incursion, and then he'll watch this press conference, because YouTube is everywhere. He'll realize we have no competent leader and just fly right on over. Oh, good news, though. Biden finally learned a second type of bird, and he wants to show off his knowledge.
And so I'm convinced that we'll be able to stop this because it is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle.
Jim Eagle? Eagle? Like Jim from The Office, but with an eagle for a head. That would have made a great cold open. It's like the episode where they tried to convince Dwight that Jim was always Asian, but Jim was always an eagle.
I'm Jim. We've been working together for 12 years.
I'm unsure. I think maybe he's saying that what he's talking about is more racist than Jim Crow because eagles are bigger than crows. He was talking about voting rights, like more specifically voter identification, where you have to actually prove that you are a citizen of the United States and someone that the government knows you exist. And you have to do that before you get to vote, and that's like a law that should be in place because that makes sense. Yeah, so that's somehow racist. It's racist because if the government has to make sure that you are a person they know exist, that's racist because Biden says it's racist. That's the logic. It's an infinite loop and circle. The good thing is, Biden joins us in missing Trump.
Have you decided whether you are going to run for re-election in 2024? You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to. My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss him. No, an answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
Oh, man, join the club, Biden. Most of America misses Trump. That's why your ratings are in the low 30s. The sad thing for America is that Biden is running again. or at least he seems to think so. I was not there. I was not at that press conference. I'm 13. But it is reported that there was an audible gasp behind the curtain when he announced that he was running again. It apparently sounded oddly like Kamala Harris. This just goes to show you, Biden is just directed by his administration. They tell him what to say, what people in the media to call on for questions, or whether or not to run again. Every time they take him out of the basement, they run the risk of him saying something crazy. Thankfully, Biden has united the country, or at least he seems to think so.
The third reason I said I was running was to unite the country. And generically speaking, all of you said, no, you can't do that. Well, I've not been able to unite the Congress, but I've been uniting the country based on the polling data.
Okay, the only poll data Biden can be looking at here is his approval ratings. I don't see where else he has united the country. He's united the American people against him, that's true, because his approval ratings, again, are in the low 30s, so 70% of the American country does not like him. Biden also seems to admit that he hasn't been exactly truthful, which seems kind of odd. Here's that final clip.
Will you commit to transparency on this issue?
I will commit to transparency, and as soon as I am in a position to be able to implement what we're doing right now.
So he admits that he has to commit to transparency, and in order to commit to it, he has to have not been committed already. He also admits that he isn't ready to be transparent. He's like, yeah, I'll stop lying once I can stop lying without being impeached. He needs to kind of go back and cover things up and remove his footprints in the snow before he can stop lying. Again, when Democrats let Biden out of the basement, he may end up continuing to lie, or even worse, telling the truth. They also run the risk of him just leaving the House altogether, and that's what we'll get to next. Well, as it turns out, on the rare occasion Biden gets out of the basement, he focuses mainly on getting his ice cream. He doesn't care if Russia is invading Ukraine or if they're invading the United States. He has to get some sugar to stay awake first. So, Jen Psaki was asked where Biden was a few days ago, and what he was doing. She seemed to struggle to answer. There was a reporter, and then a reporter exposed what he was actually doing. But Jen Psaki's answer was like, I think he had a meeting this morning, and he has another meeting this afternoon. Like that was kind of her response. She was very non-committal about it. It turns out Biden was getting ice cream. He visited a few shops with Kamala Harris merch. Man, God forbid. And then he went to go get his required ice cream. So Russia is on the verge of invading Ukraine. Sorry, committing a minor incursion. And Biden isn't considering sending troops. He's getting ice cream. He isn't focusing on any of the actual concerns for our country except for Baskin-Robbins. It turns out, though, Biden got a little too much sugar that day. Maybe Rocky Road, like the extra chocolate, that can be deadly. It really brought out his dementia symptoms.
Will you take questions on inflation? Do you think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a bitch.
So yeah, Biden is now breaking out in anger at random times. I'm not joking, a key symptom of dementia. Like you'll see in so many different clips, he's like yelling at clouds. He's like, stop it, stop. I think there was a clip where he was literally addressing racism and he goes, racism, stop it. He was like angry, but also doing his whisper into the mic thing that he does. It's really creepy. It's like the beginning to It or something. I don't know. Anyway, the guy he was swearing at, Peter Doocy, was asking a real question. Like a legitimate one, it makes sense. There was no reason for Biden to say this. Reportedly, Biden called Doocy after this and apologized, saying it was, quote, nothing personal. I think that what he did was the definition of personal. Insulting both Doocy and his mother is exactly the definition of personal. Here's the thing. Biden was caught on a hot mic there. He has no idea that they were still on, but then again, he doesn't have a lot of ideas. Anyway, if he hadn't been caught on a hot mic and people weren't trashing him over it, he wouldn't apologize because he has no integrity. If those mics weren't on, he would have gotten away with saying that. He wouldn't have even called Doocy because no one would have known. He's only apologizing because it makes his image look better. There's a new seat open on the Supreme Court. Justice Breyer is retiring. Now, this brings the question, will Biden drop Harris and make her fail upward yet again? Kamala Harris is, according to a very, very exaggerated poll, she's at a 39% approval rating. And that is, again, a high poll. In some states, or most states, she's around an 18% approval rating. Worse than another vice president after he shot a man in the face. I'm not kidding you. This leaves people wondering, will she fail upward yet again? Is she such a bad vice president that the Democrats will appoint her to the Supreme Court to get rid of her? And this has happened before to both Kamala Harris and other Democrats. They fail, they suck at their job, so Democrats want to get rid of them, and they figure, instead of just firing them, how about we put them to a higher job so that they can fail in a more risky scenario. And another factor here is an old promise of Biden's. He promised our country that he would appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court. And I'm not sure why, other than to win the support of the Democrats. Kamala Harris is both black and female, forgive me for assuming her gender. I think it would be too obvious that Harris sucks and that the Democrats want to get rid of her if they appointed her. It's still a possibility, but it would give away a heck of a lot about what the Democrats think about Harris. And that concludes this episode of Right Side of the Road. Biden gave Putin the key to Russia, and he got out of his little bubble once in a lifetime, leaving destruction in his path. He then muttered some random expletives at people who didn't deserve it, and then his administration quickly locked him in the basement. If you haven't already, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, and maybe check out YouTube. Then share this episode. I'm going to give you a lot of homework. In 2 weeks, I'll be on vacation, so I can't bring you the news, but I'll have a special pre-recorded episode. Be sure to subscribe for that. I'm Hendrik, and this is Right Side of the Road.